America is the only place where you can get fined for doing nothing, charged for doing something, and billed again just to prove you did either one correctly. And trust me, whatever you think is the dumbest version of that, it gets worse. 1. I once watched a city charge people a breathing fee, and honestly, I'm only barely exaggerating. There's a town in the Midwest that decided walking around in public parks should cost money if you're not actively doing something productive. If you weren't jogging, biking, or pretending to be in a Lululemon commercial, you could get fined for loitering, which is bureaucratic code for standing there suspiciously with lungs. Some poor guy got fined while waiting for his girlfriend to finish a run because he appeared idle. Imagine being so aggressively American that even oxygen has a price tag. This town basically said, "Oh, you want to exist? Outside for free? Not on our watch, buddy." And the best part? The city defended the rule by claiming it promoted community wellness. Yes, nothing boosts public health like slapping someone with a $75 fine for casually being alive. 2. Let's talk about the grass too long we hate you fine, which is the spiritual cousin of every HOA fever dream. In countless American suburbs, the city can and will fine you if your lawn grows a millimeter past regulation height. One guy I read about got a $500 citation because he left town for a funeral and didn't mow before he left. The city inspector took one look at his slightly rebellious blades of grass and decided civilization was collapsing. They wrote him up like he'd committed eco-terrorism. Meanwhile, just down the street, an actual pothole big enough to store a small SUV was left untouched for 3 years. Because apparently, the real danger to society isn't crumbling infrastructure. It's a lawn that looks like it's having a messy bun, don't care kind of day. Nothing says America like being punished because your grass didn't meet the local dress code. 3. Then there's the legendary wrong trash day fine. Yes, you can be financially punished for daring to place your garbage at the curb too early. One guy rolled his trash bin out an hour before sunset, and the city slapped him with a fine like he'd launched a chemical warfare device into the neighborhood. The official reasoning? Visual disruption. Let me get this straight. You can have 15 Amazon boxes, a broken trampoline, and a boat that hasn't touched water since the Obama administration rotting away on your lawn, but a trash bin sitting outside at 5:02 p.m. instead of 6 p.m. is where we draw the line? The city claimed early trash exposure invited pests, as if raccoons are punctual little gentlemen who check their watches and say, too early, we'll come back later. If pettiness were a municipal revenue stream, some places would be billionaires. 4. Let me introduce you to a personal favorite, the illegal backyard vegetable garden. Fine. Yes, in America, the land of freedom, you can be fined for growing tomatoes where your neighbors can see them. One woman planted a few peppers, some basil, and a couple of tomato plants in her front yard. Nothing weird, nothing apocalyptic. The city issued her a warning stating that edible plants violated their aesthetic code. She ignored it because she's a normal human being and not a character in a dystopian HOA soap opera. They fined her anyway. Because apparently a red tomato is more offensive to suburban sensibilities than 14 plastic flamingos and a mailbox shaped like a dolphin. The city claimed it was about maintaining visual harmony, as if rows of beige houses stamped onto cul-de-sacs like copy-paste templates are in danger of being overshadowed by a rogue zucchini. 5. Yes, the classic rainwater collection is illegal because reasons fee. In some states, harvesting rain from your own roof can get you slapped with a fine big enough to fund a small wedding. One guy installed a rain barrel to water his garden because, nature literally poured free water from the sky. The local government swooped in like he was running an unlicensed underground water cartel. They argued that the rain belonged to the state. The state. Imagine looking up at the clouds and thinking, "Yep, that's ours." The poor man ended up dismantling the barrel while officials supervised like he was disposing of contraband. Only in America can you get penalized for stealing water that fell on your own head. Next step, fines for standing in the rain without state permission. 6. There's also the siren sound too loud your car is illegal. Fine. A man bought a hybrid car. Silent, eco-friendly, practically a ninja on wheels. Except laws in his state require cars to produce audible alerts for pedestrian safety. So they fined him because his car was too quiet. Essentially, he got punished for not annoying his neighbors. This is the same country where you can legally own a pickup truck that sounds like an entire metal concert screaming out of a tailpipe, but God forbid your car whispers. The fine came with instructions that he must install an approved artificial noise device. Yes, he had to make the car louder to avoid being fined again. America, where silence is violence, but only when it comes from a vehicle. 7. Let's talk about parking too close to your own driveway, which is an actual fine in some cities. One guy parked his car right at the edge of his driveway, and got cited because the curb area must remain unobstructed. When he argued it was his curb space, the officer told him the curb belongs to the city. So yes, technically you own the house, pay the taxes, mow the lawn, fix the pipes, but the 6 inches of concrete touching your driveway? Forbidden territory. You can practically hear the city yelling, "We gave you a driveway. Don't get greedy." This man literally got fined for being too close to property he bought with his own money. If irony were gasoline, this country could run for centuries. 8. There's a fine in one southern state for excessively shiny car paint. And no, I'm not making that up. One guy had a custom paint job on his truck. Chrome-like, mirror finish, basically a disco ball on wheels. The police cited him because his vehicle was reflectively hazardous. The officer said the sun bouncing off the hood could blind other drivers. Meanwhile, the highway is full of lifted trucks with headlights aimed directly into the retinas of anyone shorter than 6'4". But no, shiny paint is where they draw the line. The fine was nearly $300 and he had to mat down the car to comply. Imagine being fined because your vehicle is too enthusiastic about existing. 9. Ever heard of the fire department must approve your grill fine? One homeowner got hit with this beauty for having a charcoal grill on his wooden deck. The deck was sturdy, safe, nowhere near any hazards. But apparently in this city, you must get fire department approval for outdoor flame-based appliances. So, a firefighter came out, measured the grill like he was inspecting nuclear equipment, and declared it unapproved. The man was fined for unauthorized grilling. This is the same country where you can buy fireworks at a gas station, but sure, grills are the danger. Bonus twist: the firefighter suggested he switch to propane because it's safer. Yes, nothing says safe like a portable bomb attached to a metal box. 10. Here's a fun one. The sleeping in your car is illegal. Fine. A woman working 2 jobs slept in her car for 20 minutes during her lunch break. She parked legally, wasn't disturbing anyone, wasn't on private property. She still got fined because the city considered it vehicle habitation. The officer told her, "Cars are for driving, not resting." Meanwhile, half the country treats their SUVs like rolling storage units. But resting? Absolutely not. The fine was nearly $100, which I'm sure really helped her financial situation. America loves to say, "Pull yourself up by your bootstraps," then fines you for sitting down to tie them. 11. The noise complaint on your own property fine is peak suburban madness. A man was using a hammer at 3 p.m. on a Saturday, prime weekend chore hours. A neighbor called in a noise complaint, and instead of saying, "Ma'am, it's 3 p.m., the police issued him a fine for unreasonable mechanical noise. Unreasonable. As opposed to what? Reasonable hammering? Meanwhile, the same neighborhood had a leaf blower symphony every fall that could drown out a jet engine. But apparently that's seasonally appropriate. The man appealed the fine and lost because the board said he should have anticipated the disturbance. Yes, he should have known that hammering on a weekend would offend the delicate soundscape of suburbia. 12. Then we have the window tint too dark, but also too light. Fine. A driver got fined in one state for tint that was deemed too dark, paid to have it lightened, then got fined in the next state for not dark enough. Essentially, his car windows committed the crime of existing while crossing state lines. It's the first documented case of tint-based discrimination. The best part? Both states claimed their laws were for driver safety. One wanted more darkness, one wanted less. It's like being told to stand up and sit down at the same time and getting fined for choosing wrong. 13. Here's one for travelers. The hotel room occupancy fee. A couple booked a hotel room for 2 adults. They later found out the hotel added a $35 occupancy processing fee, which is corporate speak for, "We charged you extra because we wanted to." When the couple confronted the front desk, the clerk explained it helps offset the impact of additional foot traffic in your own room that you paid for. The hotel essentially said, "We charged you extra for using the space you already paid to use." Imagine buying a sandwich and getting charged extra because you also plan to chew it. 14. Some states have a "driving too slowly is a hazard" fine, which sounds reasonable until you hear how it's applied. A guy was driving exactly the speed limit, no more, no less. The officer pulled him over and fined him because traffic flow was exceeding the limit and he was impeding it. Yes, he got punished for obeying the law. According to the officer, he should have kept up with the flow. Translation: forget the speed limit sign, just vibe with the chaos. America, where following the rules is optional until it's mandatory, but only when they decide it is. 15. And finally, the iconic "you used too much electricity" fee. A man installed Christmas lights. Nothing insane, no Clark Griswold display, just a modest winter theme. The utility company slapped him with a peak demand surcharge, claiming his nighttime electricity use was unusually high. He asked how he was supposed to know his power usage was above the acceptable range, and the company cheerfully suggested he purchase a real-time monitoring plan, for another monthly fee, of course. Only in America can you get fined for using a service you already pay for, then told to pay even more so you can be warned when you might be fined again. It's like being mugged by someone who then hands you a brochure on how to avoid being mugged. 16. A city once proudly issued fines for improper mailbox presentation, which is a fancy way of saying your mailbox dared to lean 10 degrees to the left, like it had a long day at work. One homeowner got a $150 ticket because the city inspector decided his mailbox's posture was visually disruptive. Visually disruptive, as if the mailbox was out there doing TikTok dances in the cul-de-sac. The man tried to explain that a snowplow had hit it the week before, but the city claimed personal maintenance of personal property is the homeowner's responsibility, which is bureaucratic code for "sounds like a you problem, pay up." The best part? The city's own stop sign on that very street was tilted like it was trying to escape its job. But of course, the government doesn't fine itself for bad posture. Only residents who expect their mailboxes to stand at perfect military attention. 17. In one western state, you can actually be fined for washing your car in your own driveway because apparently soap suds are now a threat to national security. A guy got slapped with a $250 penalty because his car washing activity contributed to unauthorized water runoff. I love that phrase. Sounds like he detonated a foam bomb. The city's official pamphlet explained that driveway car washing was prohibited unless you used eco-approved containment mats. Yes, you must now tarp your driveway like you're preparing for a crime scene just to clean a Honda Civic. Then, the city had the audacity to suggest residents use certified car wash facilities, which, shockingly, happen to pay the city annual licensing fees. So, either you pay the car wash or you pay the fine. It's like being mugged, but with paperwork. 18. There's a town where leaving your Christmas lights up past January 15th gets you fined, which tells you everything about the American holiday spirit. Joy is allowed, but only on a schedule. A man got nailed with a $100 penalty because he left a single string of icicle lights on his porch while recovering from surgery. The city cheerfully informed him that exceptions could not be made because seasonal decor affects neighborhood morale. Yes, a lonely strand of discount LEDs apparently strikes fear into the hearts of suburban residents. The city even included photos of his house in the citation, taken like paparazzi shots of a celebrity meltdown. The funniest part? His next-door neighbor had a giant inflatable Easter bunny sitting on the lawn in November, but that was fine because it was not electrically illuminated. In other words, tacky is legal, festive is not. 19. Some cities have a fee for unlicensed alarm activation, which sounds like government jargon until you realize it means if your house alarm goes off, even accidentally, you owe them money. One woman burned toast, set off her smoke alarm, and ended up with a bill from the fire department for unscheduled emergency response disturbance. They didn't even come to her house. They just charged her for the noise existing. When she called to ask how she was supposed to predict a rogue piece of sourdough, the clerk politely informed her that citizens are responsible for the behavior of their detection devices. The woman asked if that meant she should uninstall the alarm. The clerk said no, because that's illegal too. America. Pay for the alarm, pay when it activates, pay if it doesn't exist. A perfect system. 20. Plenty of cities fine people for sagging pants. But one southern town took things further with a public attire enforcement surcharge. Translation: if your shirt rides up, your shorts ride down, or your outfit offends the aesthetic preferences of a random officer, you get fined. One guy got slapped with a $70 ticket because his gym shorts were insufficiently secured during motion. In other words, he jogged. The officer wrote, "Clothing shifted during physical activity." That's right, his crime was gravity. The man asked if the rule applied to people wearing swimsuits at the community pool. The officer said no, because the pool is a designated zone of partial nudity. So apparently the city believes the sidewalk must remain prim and proper. But the pool can be a taxpayer-funded skin festival. 21. There's a city where you can be fined for distributing unregulated bird feed, which is a dramatic way of saying, don't feed the ducks Cheerios. One elderly couple got hit with a $200 fine after they tossed some breadcrumbs to pigeons near a pond. The city's reasoning? Their snack contributed to avian congregation, as if birds noticing food is a dangerous scientific anomaly. The couple tried explaining that they'd been feeding birds there for 20 years. Too bad. Now it's illegal because the city had a bird deterrence initiative. They even put up signs warning that feeding wildlife disturbs ecological balance, which is rich coming from a place that paved over half the wetlands to build a strip mall. But sure, blame the grandmas. 22. A town in Florida once fined a guy for improper pool water hue. Yes, this city monitors pool color like it's running a chlorine fashion show. His water had a slight green tint because of minerals in the pump line. The city inspector saw it, decided it resembled algae, and wrote him a $175 citation. The homeowner literally had his water tested, proved it wasn't algae, and appealed. The city refused to waive the fine because the water displayed a greenish appearance to the naked eye, which may generate concern. In other words, the scientific facts were irrelevant. His pool simply offended the inspector's eyeballs, and therefore it must be punished. America, where even the water needs good lighting. 23. One state charges a fine for license plate obstruction. But their definition of obstruction is fascinatingly creative. A man was ticketed because a leaf, one single leaf, blew onto the lower corner of his plate while he was parked under a tree. The officer stated the plate was not visible in its entirety. The man asked if he was supposed to vacuum the outdoors before driving. The officer told him he must ensure environmental conditions do not impede identification. Ah yes, because all of us have the power to negotiate with wind. The funniest part? The officer's own patrol car was parked under the same tree with 3 leaves on its rear bumper. But apparently, police vehicles are immune to botany. 24. Another common American masterpiece, the false advertising surcharge for yard sales. One woman advertised a multifamily yard sale and was fined because only her family participated. The city said the ad was misleading to the public. That's right, she was punished for exaggerating her suburban junk fiesta. The fine was $100, which she could have paid off by selling 2 more lamps shaped like pineapples. When she protested that her neighbor originally agreed to join but backed out, the city responded with, intentional or not, the description was inaccurate. If these people ran the internet, every dating profile would be fined for fraud. 25. Some places charge a fee for excessive compost odor, which is wild because half of America's landfills smell like the inside of Satan's recycling bin. One eco-friendly resident got slapped with a fine because his compost bin was detectable from the sidewalk. He pointed out that the sidewalk was literally 3 feet away from his yard. The city responded by suggesting he relocate the compost farther from pedestrian walkways. Unless he learned teleportation, this was impossible. Meanwhile, the local wastewater plant down the street pumped out odor-rotten egg every hot afternoon, but that was considered infrastructure. His compost? A threat to civilization. 26. There's a quiet little gem called the excessive vacancy fee. A man left his house empty for 6 months while working out of state, and the city charged him a penalty for failing to contribute to neighborhood vitality. They literally fined him for not being at home. According to the ordinance, empty houses create a sense of social abandonment. So the man, who owned his home, paid taxes, kept the lawn trimmed, and bothered no one, was accused of emotionally damaging the neighborhood by not being physically present. Meanwhile, the city had 3 boarded-up buildings downtown that looked like fallout scenery. But apparently those didn't harm vitality nearly as much as this guy going on a work assignment. 27. Let's talk about a city that fines pedestrians for jaywalking, even if the crosswalk signal is broken. One resident got cited for crossing the street after waiting 5 minutes for a light that never changed. He explained the issue to the officer, who shrugged and said, "You still crossed against the signal. So let me get this straight. The city failed to maintain the signal, and the resident got punished for not standing there until retirement age." The kicker? After he got fined, he reported the broken light, and the city told him they could not confirm it was malfunctioning. Probably because they never bothered to go check. Why fix something when you can profit from not fixing it? 28. Several cities issue fines for overly loud AC units, because apparently staying alive in the summer is a luxury, not a right. One family got written up because their ancient but hardworking AC emitted a persistent hum. The inspector compared it to industrial noise. Industrial. It was a 15-year-old Home Depot unit held together with zip ties and hope. The family explained it was running overtime because it was 104 degrees outside. The inspector told them to limit operation during peak hours. So yes, the city advised them to simply not cool their house when it's hottest. Makes perfect sense, if you're a lizard. 29. And finally, the majestic, non-permitted lemonade stand fine. A couple of kids set up a lemonade stand to raise money for a school trip. They were charging 50 cents a cup, which honestly is a steal in this economy. A city employee shut them down because they didn't have a temporary vendor permit. The fine was technically for their parents, who were charged $75 for unlicensed beverage distribution. The city suggested they apply for a food handling permit next time, which requires a background check, an inspection, and a $120 fee. The kids made $9. America, where even childhood entrepreneurship needs paperwork thick enough to stop a bullet. And there you have it, America, proudly turning everyday life into a cover charge. Drop your own favorite pointless fee in the comments, vote on the dumbest one, and stick around. It only gets worse from here.